So let's see an example. For example, aripiprazole, an atypical antipsychotic, is a partial agonist at selected dopamine receptors. Okay, and you have to understand this thing very clearly, that a partial agonist acts as an antagonist in presence of a full agonist. What does it mean? It means that if you give a partial agonist, okay, that partial agonist will bind with the receptors and will produce a submaximal effect. And when you give an agonist, a full agonist, that full agonist now cannot bind with the receptor, okay, because the partial agonist has already occupied the receptors, so the full agonist cannot bind with the receptor. So in this case the partial agonist is acting as an antagonist. Do you understand? Okay, now here is another term, that is inverse agonist. What is an inverse agonist? An inverse agonist is an agonist which produces the opposite effect of an agonist. After binding at a receptor site, an agonist produces an effect, but when an inverse agonist binds, it produces the exact opposite effect. So these are inverse agonists. For example, diazepam is an agonist which reduces anxiety by acting on benzodiazepine receptors. So diazepam acts on benzodiazepine receptors. So this is a full agonist at benzodiazepine receptors. What does it cause? It produces it causes reduction of anxiety. It reduces anxiety. But when you are giving an inverse agonist, which is beta carbolin, that will bind to the same receptor, that means benzodiazepine receptor, but it will provoke anxiety, that means it will induce anxiety, it will produce anxiety. Therefore it is called an inverse agonist. Hope you understand. Now let's come to the concept of antagonist. What is an antagonist? So a drug is called an antagonist if it binds with the receptor but does not produce any effect. That means the drug will only occupy the receptor, only block the receptor from agonist binding, thereby it will produce its action, that is its function. It will only block the receptor, so that any endogenous agonist that will not bind with that receptor, that cannot bind with that receptor, or if you give an agonist drug, that will not be able to bind with that drug, with that receptor. So these are called antagonists. Antagonists have affinity but they do not have efficacy. Okay, so they have the tendency to bind with the receptor but they cannot produce any effect, so there is no efficacy. Then say that antagonists simply occupy the receptors so that endogenous ligands or agonists cannot bind with them to initiate their actions. I have mentioned already. For example, atenolol is an antagonist at beta 1 adrenergic receptor in heart. This is an example. So antagonists can be of few types. There are a few types of antagonists. For example, there are competitive antagonists and there are non-competitive antagonists. Okay, so mainly of two types, competitive and non-competitive. So what are competitive antagonists? Let's see. If both the antagonists and the agonist bind to the same site of the receptor in a reversible manner, they are said to be competitive. That means the agonist and antagonist compete for binding with their receptor site. They will bind to the same site of the receptor. They will bind to the same site of the receptor. For that reason, they will compete with each other for binding with the receptor. That is to say, we can counteract an antagonist by increasing agonist doses and vice versa. So think like this, that if there is a small number of antagonists and a large number of agonists, which drugs will bind with receptors? Of course, agonists will bind, antagonists cannot bind because they are very few in number. They do not have that much strength. Okay, but if you increase the amount of agonists or the number of antagonists, what will happen? They will displace the agonists from their binding site and they will bind with the receptors, and vice versa. That means if antagonists are bound already, you can give agonists in high doses, then they will displace antagonists from their side and agonists will bind. Okay, you can see here an example that terajusin is a competitive antagonist at alpha 1 adrenergic receptor. You can see here, if a competitive antagonist is blocking a receptor with 10 mg per ml plasma concentration, okay, and we apply 50 mg per ml of agonist, the agonist will displace the antagonist and bind with the receptors and exert their action. So this is an example. Now come to non-competitive antagonist. Non-competitive antagonists are those antagonists which do not compete with agonists for receptor binding. That may be due to two reasons. The number one reason can be that the antagonists are bound to the receptor so tightly they will not allow any agonist to displace them from their side. Okay, whatever the amount of agonist is, they will not allow the agonist to bind or displace them from the receptor binding. Or maybe there may be another reason, that the agonist and antagonist bind to different sites in a receptor. They bind to the same receptor, but they bind at different sites of that receptor. So these antagonists are called non-competitive antagonists. So as I have mentioned here, that here agonists cannot compete with antagonists for binding, and increasing agonist concentration will not diminish antagonist effect. Okay, so non-competitive antagonist can be of the following types. So we can further divide non-competitive antagonists into two types. One is irreversible, another is allosteric antagonist, which I have mentioned already, that irreversible antagonists actually bind with the receptor with covalent bonds, very tight bonds. Okay, so agonists cannot displace them. For example, phenoxybenzamine is an irreversible antagonist at alpha adrenergic receptors. An allosteric antagonist, that means when agonist and antagonist are binding to different sites of a receptor, they are called allosteric antagonists. Now come to a very important and very interesting topic, that is sphere receptor. What are sphere receptors? Suppose you have a car, your own private car, and you are going from one city to another city by that car, and you have 4 tires attached to that car, and you have an extra tire, a spare tire. You are taking this within your car because you think that if the car breaks down and there is any tear or rupture of any tire, then you can change that tire with that spare tire. Okay, so that is a spare tire. So without that spare tire, you can fully drive your car. Your car is fully functional with that tire, but that tire is present as a reserve maybe, or a spare. So spare receptor concept is exactly the same as that. Okay, so there are receptors